presiding over today's board meeting as Sam Williamson is not available today. I do believe that we have a quorum. So with that, Representative Gainey, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you to begin presiding.
Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
I just wanted to make sure everybody can hear me. First, I just want to start out, telling people to stay safe, put on a mask. It's COVID-19. We had a spike. It's getting real. So just want to remind everybody, when you leave out, remember, we protect one another. Please put on a mask. It's good to see and hear everybody. Just want to start with a roll call. I was already said we have a quorum, but can we get a roll call?
Daniel here.
Okay.
Jody here.
I will. Lindsay here.
Okay. All right, roll call's been approved. So I guess next we going into public comments. And Diamante, you want to handle the public comments part?
Sure. So we did receive one public comment for today's meeting. As usual, we will accept Q&A in the Q&A portal. We do not have the chat operational today to preclude us from having any incidents like what happened in June. So members of the public should feel free to post Q&A in the portal, and the board will recognize those questions that they believe should be responded to by staff and/or themselves. So for public comment, we received one from a Miss Megan Confer-Hammond, the interim executive director in the Greenfield neighborhood, and her comment relates to agenda item 5B. She says that the Fair Housing Partnership requests that as the pandemic worsens, pre-existing inequities, that fair housing analysis is conducted of the impact of the proposed housing developments and the implementation of housing programming such as the HSP.
And that's the only one we had, correct?
That's the only one that we received prior to today's meeting.
Okay, hey, thank you, Diamante. Like she said, if there's any others that come into the chat room, we will address them. Want to move forward. It talks about the approval of the May 21st, 2020 special board meeting minutes. Can we get an approval for that?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second.
So move. Everybody's all right with an aye. Couldn't hardly hear nobody.
Aye.
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 I saw Rhonda.
And then we got the second one is approved, the June 11th, 2020 board meeting minutes.
Patty, anyone, who else is on the call? Can you?
Motion to approve.
Anybody second?
Second.
Meetings accepted. So now we're going to move to request for proposals for 1602 to 1606 Broadway Avenue, RFPs, RFQs, and RFIs and bids.
Yes, so Amanda Luditt will be presenting today's RFP items 1602 and 1606 Broadway Avenue. Amanda?
Hi, so this announcement is more of an update from the February board meeting about URA-owned property at 1602 to 1606 Broadway in Pittsburgh's Beachview neighborhood. Back in February, we announced intent to release an RFP to redevelop this property. Originally, we intended to release that RFP in March 2020, but the timeline was shifted back due mostly to COVID-19. Now we are targeting a late July 2020 release. The RFP itself outlines that the URA is requesting proposals to purchase and redevelop 1602 to 1606 Broadway Avenue. The goal of the RFP is to select a redeveloper who can complete a high-quality mixed-use development as permitted by local neighborhood commercial zoning guidelines while preserving the architectural character of the building. Once released, the RFP itself will be open for 12 weeks, after which time the review committee will begin to review the proposals.
Any questions on that? Great. So this, we don't have to vote on anything today. We're just going over it, correct?
Right.
Yes.
Just an announcement.
So the next one is announcements, the presentation of the Center Avenue Program Guidelines, the COVID-19 Program Impact Housing and Commercial, and presentation of the Housing Stabilization Program. Who's taking that?
So Jessica Smith-Perry will walk us through the first few items.
Hi, yes, good afternoon, everybody. The first item I'm going to talk about today is it's basically an update regarding the Center Avenue program guidelines. It's not for final vote today. Next month, we'll be back with the more detailed guidelines for you for final vote. But today, I'm here to update you on our efforts on Center Avenue and to describe guidelines that we are in the process of creating. So as you know, a few months ago, the URA took 6 developers in front of the board to enter into exclusive negotiations with them for projects along the Center Avenue corridor. And Neighborhood Allies has been working with these developers as they work through their pre-development phase of the project, and has approached us with some funding needs for the development. Because these developments are very tricky. They're really trying to increase economic values along Center Avenue. Additionally, for some of these developers, it's their first time doing development. So we found a few needs for funding. So we're going to create a special program guidelines called the Center Avenue Program Guidelines with the objective to help the developers who are developing along the Center Avenue corridor. The properties must be located in the Center Avenue corridor between Dinwiddie and Heron Avenues. And it's really intended to be for the smaller projects that have either 25,000 square feet of commercial space or less, or 25 residential units. And we see this as really a 3-pronged program where developers could apply for funding from 3 different sort of portions of the program. The first being pre-development financing, which is really financing that could be very soft loan or potentially grant to help the developers with some of their pre-development costs. It's not to exceed 50% of their total pre-development costs. Later today, you're going to see kind of a precursor to this program when we talk about Big Tom's Barbershop, but it's really intended to help them get through the early parts of their development. The second part of the financing will be appraisal gap financing, to really help bridge the difference between what the total development costs of the projects are going to be and what the market value or post-construction appraised value of the properties are going to be. So we're working on identifying funding for that. And then thirdly is really just low interest loans. It's not intended to be the only loan in the project, less than 30 or 40% of the total development costs, but really to help with the loan financing side. So what we're going to be doing over the next month is really working on figuring out these loan parameters, working with Neighborhood Allies, working with the developers, figuring out what they need, looking at our funding availability. We plan to source this program with a combination of federal funds, URA funds, and city local funds. So therefore, we're just kind of figuring out those final details, but I will be back next month with final program guidelines. Are there any questions?
Board members, do you have any questions?
No questions. Just a comment. One, thank you, Jessica, and all staff who have worked on putting this together and continue to usher the redevelopment of Center Avenue forward. And then the second piece would just be a piece of commentary where we've seen recently a number of banks, Chase, Key, locally, PNC, F&B, and a number of banks talk about the financial commitments that they want to make towards racial equity, and sourcing or helping provide sourcing for dollars for this sort of activity would be one significant way for them to participate in racial equity locally.
And this is the program that we talked about could be a centerpiece or a bigger plan for the rest of the cities too, correct, Diamante?
Yes, it could be a pilot and could demonstrate a model to reactivate numerous commercial corridors, particularly those impacting Black life in Pittsburgh. And so this is an opportunity to model and demonstrate how we can redevelop neighborhoods with the people from and within those neighborhoods. So yes.
And I also neglected to say that part of this program too is the technical assistance that the URA can provide to the developers through either Neighborhood Allies or through our departments themselves. We have new commercial lending sort of division that can help the developers with their tenants for the commercial space as well. So we're working on that.
Sounds good. So next up is the COVID-19 Impact Housing Support Program.
Yeah, so this is our normal dashboard. And I'm just going to hit the highlights because later in the board meeting today, Jeremy Carter is going to give a presentation on the Housing Stabilization Program itself. But just in terms of some overarching highlights, since COVID happened in roughly the middle of March, we have helped 1,142 households through the Housing Stabilization Program. It's also really notable for you to notice on that circle with the blue and the gray that our wait list is 0 right now, which means our providers are getting caught up, and also the providers that you approved last month are now getting on board. So we have more providers who are helping everybody. And you can see our total funding total right now for the program is $4 million, which is a combination of the HOF funding, a couple years of the HOF funding, the new CDBG COVID funding that came through the city. So thank you very much to the city. And then also the Pittsburgh Foundation and the RK Mellon Foundation commitment.
All right. Any questions?
No, I mean, that's really amazing. I don't know if this is I don't want to misspeak, but I don't know if this is the first time that the wait list has been cleared out, and especially considering all that's happening. You know, congratulations to you and your team for doing great work.
Congratulations. So,
and the next slide, I think, Daniel, can you move to the next slide real fast? It also, at the last meeting, Lindsay, you had asked for racial breakout, and this is the specific racial breakout that the providers gave us as well. And also, before I pass it over to Jennifer to talk about the commercial COVID program, I also do want to say that this program is funded by our Housing Opportunity Fund. And that is a picture of our annual report that is being released today. So it's going on our website today, and we will have hard copies for folks by the end of the month.
Any questions? Jessica, thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'll just be quick to give you an update of some of the highlights of our COVID business support programs. We now have 2 programs running, our smaller emergency fund program and our larger recovery loan program. They are both doing very well. We have closed over 200 loans to date. I want to thank the team for all their hard work on making this happen. We continue to process more loans daily, and the numbers are changing by the minute. So please look forward to next month. There'll be another huge jump here for everyone to enjoy, but I'm happy to take any specific questions.
Any questions from the board?
Thank you.
Thank you. So next up, we got the Housing Stabilization Program overview.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. So I wanted to start by framing the Housing Stabilization Program, when it was created and where we are today, very briefly. So Housing Stabilization Program was initially designed to be an early intervention program to help stabilize households before they get into eviction. The program is for renters who are under 50% AMI, and we also are able to help homeowners under 80% AMI. The program offers up to $3,000 of assistance for rental, mortgage needs, or utilities. So as Jessica talked about, the program has really evolved since COVID-19. And so where the program is today, you know, is quite remarkable. We started with a $750,000 program, and now it's a $4 million program. And we have quite a few providers that have hopped on to help with the capacity. Next slide. So the top row of providers is who we started with, the 5 providers. And the following 2 rows are the providers that we have recently added on to the slate. Most of them have begun services already. I think just 1 or 2 are waiting to start services next week. So like Jessica said, all of them are on board. And so this will tremendously help with the unprecedented demand that we are seeing. Also special, I wanted to note that the 2 providers on this list specialize in helping certain populations, and that includes Veterans Leadership Program, who we are happy to have on board to serve our veterans and their families, as well as Jewish Family and Community Services of Pittsburgh, who really specializes in serving immigrants and refugees and their families. So we are very excited to have both of them on board to help with those populations. Next slide. So we have partnered with United Way's 211 hotline as our coordinated entry point for the housing stabilization program. So anyone who is in need of rental or mortgage assistance within the city of Pittsburgh should call United Way's 211 line to be screened for this program. There are a couple of different ways that someone could get in touch with 211 other than just dialing 211. But we do suggest that you try to call 211 as a primary method. Other benefits of using 211 that we have found is that they are able to translate into many different languages to serve our residents who have English as a secondary language. Additionally, they maintain a large database of all other social service and assistance programs within their database, where they are able to provide additional resources outside of just housing stabilization program. Next slide. So when COVID-19 happened, our team went to work to identify what we can do to relax some of the regulations within the program to meet just the unprecedented environment that we were in. I won't go over all of these in detail, but I want to at least show you some of the relaxations that we have put in place since middle of April. One of them is income, and when we started the HSP program, we did look to make sure households had some income to sustain themselves after HSP assistance. However, with the situation that we are in, and many people waiting on unemployment and just having really, situations that are hard to gauge in terms of income, we have decided that HSP will not deny applicants for lack of income during this time because we realize that many people are in a limbo situation. Additionally, we have advised the service providers to do as much electronic documentation and signing as much as possible, again, to help stick to public health guidelines and just carry out these services while still being safe. And of the about 800 or so people that have come through in the last couple of months, still about 86% of people are still able to complete their intakes with this program completely online or through a phone. Additionally, city tax issues have come up a lot. And so as part of the program guidelines, we do need to check city tax status on properties that we are assisting. However, we are not able to do that right now given our work at home environment. And so I wanted to be clear that although we are trying to check this, city tax status will not prevent someone from moving forward in the program. Next slide. Other considerations that we have worked on include increasing language access for our neighbors who don't speak English as their primary language. With JFCS on board now, we will direct referrals to that organization if the caller has identified a different language that they speak, so we can assign them to Jewish Family and Community Services to best support them. We've also asked organizations to minimize as much non-HOF paperwork as much as possible, knowing that agencies still have their own paperwork. The HOF paperwork itself is 2.5 pages. We also made clear that HMIS, which is a Homeless Management Information System, is completely optional. We know that this created some concerns about how information is reported. And so we have clarified with all providers that this data entry is optional. And although it is helpful for us as a community to know what's going on with the housing system, if someone does not want to provide this information to be reported, they can opt out and no problem. Next slide, please. So with the various different funding sources that have been infused into the Housing Stabilization Program, this visual is to show you how some organizations are receiving multiple funding while some are just receiving one kind of funding. So with the CDBG coronavirus funding, we have that split between rental assistance and mortgage assistance. And the three organizations issuing mortgage assistance, this really is within their wheelhouse, and so they are the experts at issuing this kind of assistance. Additionally, two organizations have Pittsburgh Foundation funding to run a eviction prevention program, which I'll get into a little bit. Next. So since we have Housing Opportunity Fund and CDBG funds in the same program, this is just to show you kind of the differences and similarities between the funds. Between both of them, they still can assist up to 3 months or $3,000 for rental assistance and utilities. The biggest difference is that the CDBG funds have a COVID-19 restriction, meaning that your need must be somewhat related to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next. So two services that we are rolling out that we want to make you aware of. One is the Community Ambassador Program. So this program has spurred from community feedback that we have received about increasing access to programs, not just Housing Stabilization Program, but the other rental assistance programs. And so these community ambassadors will be small community-based groups to help residents in Pittsburgh access programs, as well as helping them collect documentation and completing applications. The hope is that we can increase outreach in different communities, as well as help people go through the program quicker by working directly with the service providers administering the program. Later on, we will be asking the board for approval to contract Omacello to be the lead agency to administer this program for the URA. In terms of timing, we hope to issue the application for community ambassadors sometime next week, as soon as next week. And we will hold an information session for anyone who would be interested in applying. And that will be included in the application. And we hope to begin these services the first week of August. Next slide. The other program that we wanted to talk to you about is the Eviction Prevention Program, which goes live tomorrow. So this started from conversations with the Pittsburgh Housing Court, concerned about the increase in evictions once the moratorium will be lifted, which was just extended. So the point of this program is to really streamline the assistance from the Housing Court to the service providers. So we have set up a streamlined and efficient referral system where the YWCA and Action Housing will be the administrators of this eviction prevention program, where they will be able to issue payment within 10 days. Additionally, we have set up a very nice coordination between the service providers and the housing court staff so that we can just have a really good streamlined communication back and forth on who we are helping and who the housing court has in their pipeline. So this will start July 10th, even with the moratorium being extended. And we hope to analyze this and use data to see how it goes and then possibly extend it. But I do want to give a big shout out to the Housing Court, who has really helped us make this a reality, and that includes Judge Christine Ward. Next slide, please. I think Jessica's going to take this.
Sure. This is a slide just really to show that we're not the only program out there. You've seen a lot in the press recently about money coming from the CARES Act to PHFA and then onto the county. And they also have a program. They're administering their program through Allegheny County Economic Development and Action Housing, Inc. And you can see that renters can apply to receive up to $750 a month with a maximum of 6 months. Our program is up to a total of 3,000, maximum of 3 months. People that live in the city can apply to both programs. Unfortunately, they do have separate entry processes, but they can apply to both programs, and we're going to make sure that our community ambassadors know the process for the county. So if people need to apply for both programs, they can. Due to CDBG regs, they cannot get money from both programs for the same month. It has to be different months. So there's no double dipping of duplication, but they can apply to both. And then you can see that the county program also helps homeowners. Our program helps homeowners as well, but the program information is listed there. And the URA is working right now with the county and the mayor's office to get a comprehensive release that has all the information and the best ways to apply for all programs.
Thank you. Anybody
Are there any questions?
Thank you, Jessica. I appreciate it. Next up is on today's voting agenda, residential lending and investments, development services, and of course, agenda B. So let's start with the residential lending and investment. Who will take that?
That'll be Jessica.
That's me. Okay, so this is really kind of a cleanup administrative item. Today, we're asking for approval to revise the rental gap program guidelines and then also to sunset the rental housing development improvement program guidelines. Basically, what we're doing here is, you know, for decades, for 30 years, the URA has operated a rental housing development improvement program, which was the source we used for rental developments, primarily affordable developments. But the guidelines were a little broader than that because 30 years ago, we were also doing more market rate lending. And then what happened a couple years ago, we got the Housing Opportunity Fund money and we worked with the advisory board to create brand new programs. And so one of the programs the advisory board asked us to create was a rental program. So we created the rental gap program. So for the last 2 years, we've been operating, the URA's been operating rental gap program and rental housing development improvement program. And if somebody needed the HOF money and also some additional home or CDBG money to fill the gaps in their deals, we were coming in front of you with a couple different authorizations, one for rental gap and one for rental housing development improvement program. We're just trying to streamline that. So we're closing the rental housing development improvement program, merging it with the rental gap program so that developers only have to apply to one program and not two. Daniel, next slide. Basically here, this just kind of shows what we're doing, but we're not changing any major programmatic issues really at all. In order to combine the programs, you can see we did have to sort of change one program to go to the other, something like that. For example, the HOF rental gap program prioritizes longer term affordability, the lower income levels. So you can see how we're combining things. But really the biggest change is the HOF program caps developments at 1 million because we were seeing that a lot of tax credit developments needed a little more than that. We're now doing the cap at 1.25 million for all of our funding sources put together. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? Thank you, Jessica.
Yes.
So next up is the Community Ambassador Program contract.
Yeah, so this is for administration of the Community Engagement Ambassador Program that I just talked about. So we are here to ask for approval for an award of $200,000 for Omocello to essentially manage the Community Ambassador Program service. They will be responsible for administering the RFP for the community engagement ambassadors, as well as the ongoing training and support and coordination between the ambassadors and the service providers and the URA. We do have Joshua Pollard on today with us. He is the CEO of Omacello, and I'll let him introduce himself and the organization.
How you doing, Joshua?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Representative Gainey, and thank you, Jeremy, for the opportunity to showcase just how excited we are about the opportunity. I'd also like to take a moment and thank Councilman LaBelle, as well as the leadership of the city for putting together the Housing Opportunity Fund, which was created out of a pandemic that had already existed before COVID-19. I just recognize that without that, at this time, things would be drastically more difficult. So thank you for that. When the URA presented us with the opportunity to support the Community Engagement Ambassador Program, the reality is that we found it very exciting. The bottom line here is that we want to be a part of this community in a way that we're able to provide significantly more capacity for the smaller organizations who are going to be on the ground doing the work, ensuring that individual community members are able to be supported with the funds and rounds of resources. I could dig significantly more into some of the things that we'd like to do, from the range of training, support, mentorship, and adding capacity. But I will leave it there and say we're looking forward to working with you all should this be approved.
Any questions from the board?
All right.
We have one
I have a quick
question in the
question.
We have one, so just for one moment, we have one question in the chat, but we also need to make sure that we go back and actually vote on the RGP. So I think that we triage the question in the chat, and then Representative Gainey, you can queue this up for vote.
Just so we can get
For the
as
vote?
specific as possible.
Well, I'm hearing 2 or 3 voices.
Perfect customer, client, somebody you're supposed to help. Give them a name.
Hello?
Okay, I'm not sure what the background noise was, but I think
I
we
couldn't hear
muted
you.
that
I'm sorry,
person
dear
now.
mom.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, all right. So we need to go back and vote on the RGP, and we'll also vote on the Omacello. I do see 2 questions in the Q&A.
I have a question too, Diamante.
Okay, all right. I'll turn it over to you, Jody.
I just wanted clarity. I mean, well, are we ready to talk about Omacello, or should we do rental gap first?
I think you need to vote on rental gap first, and then we move on to Omacello and triage the questions.
Okay.
Okay, so let's vote on the rental gap program.
Motion to approve.
Anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, okay.
So now you want to move on to the next topic. I know we said we had, I see 3 questions in the chat. Jody, you want to go first, and then we'll go into the chat?
Yeah, sure. Is the reason for contracting with Omacello that there's not capacity at the URA to do this? Okay.
Also, with Omacello, are just trying to figure out how intake would work. Are these ambassadors fielding 211 calls? Are they going directly to organizations that represent communities that we know we're missing? Could you explain that part a little bit for me, please?
Yes, I can explain that, Director Powell. So there will be almost 2 ways that this will happen. One is at the point of intake. So if someone calls 211 for this program, we will have a very specific question stating, this is the type of documentation that's needed for this program. Would you need help accessing or obtaining these documents? If they answer yes to that, Omacello would then get that referral, as well as the service provider who's actually going to issue that assistance. So those happen at the same time, so the community ambassadors can get started on working with that client on their documentation. And then Omacello would essentially assign those to the different community ambassadors. The other way that happens is almost reverse, because part of the service is outreach to communities that have been underserved. And so while they will be responsible for doing that outreach and recruitment, they will still funnel them back to 211 so that we can keep that consistent coordinated entry.
So just to, if I compare it, the second part back to you, organizations that may not have the capacity or particularly work heavily in this space would be able to contact the community ambassador program to walk their clients through this process?
That's exactly right.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Jody, you still had a question?
No, I'm good. There's questions in the chat though.
All right. Diamante, you want to handle the questions in the chat?
Sure. So we have several questions. I think, so there are several from Celeste, and then there were two, I believe, from Swain Uber. So I'll start with Celeste's questions. She's asking why was Omocello chosen, and did other orgs apply to be leads, or were they given the opportunity? She wants to know, is this the for-profit development side of Omocello or Omocello Care side? And how will the 2 to 6 organizations be chosen under the lead organization? So I think that Jessica's most familiar with the process that was culminated to reach this decision once it was realized that the URA would not have the direct capacity to manage these smaller contracts. So Jessica, I'm going to turn it over to you to answer those questions.
Sure, yes. So this has been fast and furious for us, and the CARES money coming from the federal government through the city to us requires that it be extended by January, and that's a really fast timeline. So we needed to find a way to get the community ambassadors working quickly to be able to get word out and to help people fill out their applications. So we worked with some of our partners at the county and other organizations to try to figure out how can we ideally do this together. And we talked to a few groups that could potentially do this. Now, unfortunately, as everyone is dealing with their own sort of bureaucratic processes, it worked out that the county had to go a different direction on their own, but we were trying to figure out how to fast and do it together. And Omocello was one of 3 groups that we had talked to, and they were the one that could mobilize the fastest. And so that is why we decided to go with Omocello. Should I go through the other questions in the chat, Diamante, or?
Yeah, I think that there are, and then there was the last one. Was there a community process to select Omocello? Swain Uber's comments are related to RGP and funding. So I think Celeste's last question, and then we'll move on.
Okay, so and I might have to pass it over to Joshua to specifically answer her question about how the groups will be chosen, but Omocello will be doing outreach, and we will also get word out for groups to apply to Omocello, and then Omocello will take it from there. Joshua, do you have any other specifics as to the process?
Yeah, you hit on it specifically, Jessica. There will be an RFP. There will be an information session for groups that ultimately would like to work as a part of this community ambassador program, and that information will be shared broadly.
Great. And then Swain's questions regarding RGP, his question is the funding source reduced? No, absolutely not. What we're doing is we're combining the HOF money with CDBG and Home and the other URA resources so that we have a larger pot of funding to be able to do RFP rounds.
I think there's another question in the chat. I think I see 7 up there now. It was 6, now there's 7. Is the other one, somebody want to take that one? Or is,
I think it's more of a comment. I think it's a comment. It's not a question. I think it says, where'd it go? Once they're being answered, they're being moved to another. So I think that most of the questions are about the process of how the ambassador was selected, and again, I think that most of this was talked about with the county in conjunction with the CARES money. And the other thing my other point about this, I think that when we issued the RFP for program administrators, it was very clear that there was a lot of capacity, numerous groups that could do the community ambassador work. And that is what, sort of made us realize that this absolutely needs to happen, but we don't have the capacity to manage, 6 or 7 very small contracts. And so, Jessica, I think that the most of the questions are really around maybe some of the county's thinking and who were some of those other groups that were considered.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm at liberty to say, but we talked to groups. I guess I will give an example. We talked to like neighborhood allies. We talked to groups that have done these similar type of things before. Additionally, as a lot of folks are aware, Action Housing is providing this type of service for the county. It's a little bit different. It's not really a community ambassador approach, but yeah, so those are the other groups we talked to.
Another question that I had, would the board be able to give some direction, if possible, to the types of organizations that we'd like to see partnering? Just again, pulling this back to our meeting our board meeting last month about there being communities in particular that, thankfully we've expanded the rental assistance program and we've got more diverse participants that are able to reach those vulnerable populations, but I still think there are some gaps. Would we be able to, as a board, make some suggestion or maybe help give some input on the guidelines as to how those partner organizations for the ambassador program will be selected?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, I can still see Joshua. I'm sure that him and his staff is open to us meeting with them or even them meeting with, the board to go over some of that. We have talked already about some groups. We had a group that applied originally that focuses on Spanish speaking population, and they can be very helpful in working with folks to actually fill out the applications. So any of the groups actually that applied to us the first time and were not selected, those names will be passed off to Amasello, and we will ask that Amasello do outreach directly to them.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Josh.
Any other questions?
Absolutely.
I have one other question. I agree with Lindsay. I definitely want to be able to engage on that in the board, but I'm wondering about community as well. Can there be some kind of process for the community to make suggestions or, work with Amasello somehow to highlight who might be helpful or interested?
I would just say that we welcome any and all suggestions. At the end of the day, our hope is to add capacity to the individual community organizations that would be doing this work day in and day out. And so it's going to be both top down from the URA board and staff in terms of who we would work with, in terms of we would love to hear who those folks are. And then we'd love to as well hear from the community in an accelerated fashion such that we can get immediate help for families who are struggling as a result.
Josh, your audio faded out a little bit at the end.
No, I apologize. I simply said that we just want to ensure that we can move in a swift enough fashion to get the resources out to families who need it before the end of December. But we welcome the input both from the community as well as the URA board and staff.
Okay.
Any more questions?
There's about 5 unanswered questions in the Q&A.
Okay.
One is this the for-profit development side or the care side of Amasello?
Yeah, I can answer that. This is the for-profit side. I want to be very clear that Amasello on the for-profit side is a mission-driven investment company. And at the core, to think that development is all that we do would be less than what we are. We have managed a number of programs like this, including one in partnership with the county that we call our Family Navigator Initiative. So this is not foreign work to us.
Are there any other questions in the Q&A that the board would like to see answered? We'll prioritize those.
Is there any other questions from the board?
I just wanted to kind of clarify this last little bit about some concerns about the community being locked out of the process. Hopefully, you know, per my comments and the remarks that you made, Josh, will be able to make sure that some of the community concerns about making sure we're reaching, you know, the right populations and populations again that are most vulnerable and need these resources, that we'll be able to put that input and build that guideline within the community engagement that you plan to do. So hopefully that piece to the questions in the chat, hopefully that alleviates some of the concerns there.
Yeah, I will personally ensure that there is a community process and that community voice is heard. A lot of the ambassadors that came over the first time that really helped us to create and think about this program, they are well respected in the community, well known in the community, and they're already doing this work, which I think was another important thing. How do we empower people that are already doing this anyway? So we will work with Omicello to make sure that the board's concerns around community input and community approach is important, because I don't think a program like this works without some level of community influence, because those are the folks that we're trying to reach. And we will keep you apprised and updated.
Appreciate it. Thank you, Director.
Sounds good. Want to take it to a vote? Can we vote on this? Can you, hello? Can't hear nobody.
Yeah, we can vote.
I can't hear nobody. I'm sorry, I had to switch phone. So, so move. Somebody so move.
So move.
Second, anybody second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is the Homeowners Assistance Program Contract Amendments.
Jessica will take this one.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yeah, this will be fast and quick. You guys everyone has seen the Homeowner Assistance Program before. Jeremy Carter and the consumer staff have done amazing. And thank you to all the advocates that have really helped get the word out about this program. We have done over 100 houses in the last year. And this is the program where homeowners can apply to get up to $30,000 worth of work done to their house. We have 6 nonprofit program administrators that hired contractors for this program. We also have 4 for-profit contractors that we work with directly as well. But 2 of the 6 program administrators are the Hilltop Alliance and Action Housing, and they have done so many houses now that they have completed their allocation of funding. So I'm here today to ask for approval to increase their contracts, to increase the Hilltop by 300 and Action Housing by 350, so they can continue administering this program for us. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? It's a great program. So let's vote. I get anybody to move it?
So motion to approve.
Second? Anybody second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is the Larmer Choice Neighborhood.
Yes, Larmer. This one's exciting today.
Great community.
And the board, yes, absolutely. And Representative Gainey, thank you for all your help with the Larmer Choice project. Over the years, a lot of you will remember that the city was awarded the Larmer Choice in June 2014. It was for the new construction of 333 units in the Larmer neighborhood, replacing East Liberty Gardens and Hamilton Larmer. And here we are 6 years later, and the first and second phases are completely complete. That's about 230 units of new housing that the residents are living in. And right now, McCormick, Barron, Salazar, the Larmer Consensus Group, and the Housing Authority are working on phases 3 and 4. And it got a little bit out of order because the Larmer School is phase 4, and it actually got a tax credit award before phase 3. So phase 4, which is what you see the photos of, this is the interior of the Larmer School. It's going to be converted into 35 units and then 7 townhouse units outside of the school. And the pictures are actually of the auditorium and gymnasium part of the school, and that is actually not going to be converted into housing. That's going to be converted into what we call white box for future commercial space. And what's going to happen is one of the URA's affiliate organizations, the PEIDC, the Pittsburgh Economic and Industrial Development Corporation, is going to basically master lease that space from the development entity consisting of McCormick Barron, and then we'll later find a tenant that can do either sort of some type of food co-op or community space or something along those lines, some type of commercial incubator space. But in order to do that, we have to build out what's called the white box, which is basically a shell that can then later be built out some more if it needs, to be kitchen equipment or what it needs in the future. And to do that, we need an additional about $517,261 that the URA will fund out of various sources through the Larmer budget. Additionally, I'm also asking for authorization to increase the contract with Foffman and Associates for the completion of the commercial white box, because it's taken a while and the commercial white box was more expensive than we originally thought, and also because of the historic nature of the building, the architect has had to spend more time on this as well. So we also need to increase his contract. Are there any questions?
Any questions from the board? I see it's gone. Before we go forward, I also want to thank Councilman Ricky Burgess for the work that he's put into the Larmer Choice neighborhoods. He's done a fantastic job of ensuring everything, and credit is due his way. So I want to make sure that Reverend Burgess, Councilman Reverend Ricky Burgess received the gratitude he deserves for the Larmer Choice neighborhoods. Okay, can we take it to a vote? So,
motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next is the Larmer
Thank
Choice
you.
neighborhoods. Next
Yes.
is the Larmer
So
Choice neighborhoods
also-
again.
Yes, and this is exciting too. So this isn't directly related to Choice Neighborhoods, but basically this is going to be a future for-sale housing development. So most of Choice Neighborhoods is a rental development, and the Larmer Consensus Group has been working with another one of the URA's affiliates, which is the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation, to plan for up to 30 new construction homes in the neighborhood. And so today we are asking for a pre-development loan out of the Housing Opportunity Fund for sale development program. This already went to the HOF advisory board last week. It's for $45,000. It will really help the PHDC and the Larmer Consensus Group hire an architect, move forward with the design portion of the project, and then it is planned that this will be part of the second East Liberty TRID issuance. This one is related to Bakery Square, and when that happens, there should be enough proceeds or grant funding to pay off the loan. So this is really just a loan to get started with the new construction of homes, for sale homes in the neighborhood.
And board members, anybody have a question? Again, I want to thank you for working with the Larmer Consensus Group. I know this is a project they've been wanting to see for quite some time. So again, I appreciate you, Jessica, and all the work that you put in. Thank you. Can we move it to a vote?
Representative Gainey, if I could for just a moment, I want to highlight that this work is being overseen by Rich Snipe at the PHDC. He's doing an amazing job bringing affordable home ownership online for neighborhoods like Larmer, where we know that this is a priority. So I want to thank Jessica, certainly, but I also want to recognize the efforts of Rich over the last 6 months to take these projects that were very tough to try to get across the finish line. And what we've been able to do is convert those 2 opportunities into a broader redevelopment plan that will revitalize a whole block, which is absolutely what we want to be doing. And also thank you for your support and your leadership in helping us to get this far.
I appreciate that. And Rich, thank you. I didn't realize the part you played, but I wanted to make sure that I publicly thank you as well. So board, can we take it to a vote?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is Lorimer Mayflower Phase 1 for Sale Development Program.
Yeah, so this next one actually is another PHDC item, which is the facade program, the residential facade program for the city. And I do want to echo Diamante's comments about the Pittsburgh Housing Development Corporation. Rich and his staff have really moved a lot of deals forward, and they came to the URA and asked us for a $125,000 grant to do the facades for privately owned owner-occupied homes that are around the houses that they've been doing in various neighborhoods. And they also will work with CVCs as well that have houses that they've rehabbed and that maybe the neighbor next door needs a facade. The PHDC will work with those groups as well. So what I'm asking for authorization for today is a $125,000 grant from the URA that will be given to the PHDC for them to run the program in accordance with the guidelines that this board approved in March of 2020. It will basically provide grants between $5,000 and $8,000 to the homeowners to fix up the facades of their houses.
Wow, good. Board members, do you have any questions? Again, I want to thank Richard Snipe for the work that he's put in. This is a wonderful development. Jessica, you as well. Appreciate y'all's work. Diamante, anybody want to say anything on that?
No, I also want to highlight the work of some of the other PHDC staff members. So we recently started putting a little bit more effort into how we manage the PHDC. So we have Dave Major, we have Jarmel Fairclaw, Justin Belt, and Dave Howe, who also work very diligently to think creatively about how we can start to move the middle on some of these programs. And again, rethinking the facade program, I think has been genius because it gives neighbors an opportunity to also benefit from the work that this board advances. So again, thank you all for the work that you do, and thank you to this board for approving those citywide guidelines last year to make this possible.
So can we move it to a vote? So move. Can we move it to a vote?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. The next one is the grant agreement with Pittsburgh Housing Development Corp.
I think
No, actually, yeah, that was the previous one.
Okay.
This next one is Big Tom's Barbershop on Center Avenue. This one is really exciting, and this one relates a little bit to the announcement that I made at the beginning. But I think most of the board is aware of this building in front of you, which was Ham's Barbershop on Center Avenue, 2178 Center Avenue. This was one of the buildings that the URA RFP'd and selected Big Tom to do this development, to basically bring his barbershop from a couple blocks away onto the ground floor and to rehab the entire building and to convert the upper floors to housing. He has been working with neighborhood allies, and they have been helping him with his pre-development. He has secured a $50,000 grant from Neighborhood Allies. And so today I'm here to ask for approval for a $50,000 CDIF grant to serve as a match so that he has the $100,000 needed to perform the pre-development activities on the building. The CDIF program is a program that we have at the URA that can help nonprofits do this type of work. So we are asking for his grant to come out of that. However, in the future, for the other respondents for Center Avenue, they will be using the new program that I talked about earlier today. And Tom Boyd is on the call, I think. Mr. Boyd, is there anything you would like to say?
Hello, everyone.
Hey, Tom, how you doing?
I'm good, Ed. I just wanted to say, really, everyone at Neighborhood Allies, especially Zach Thomas, Glenn Grayson, Jason Pagano. I mean, they've been very helpful with helping me or helping us to get this, get the ball rolling. They've been telling us that it's a process, and you know, we're just grinding, and we're ready to go. We're ready to help the neighborhood, have something to look forward to in redevelopment and rebuilding. And we're just very grateful for all of the help that we've been getting from everyone, all of the people who've been supporting. And I think that's all I can say right now. Thank you.
Board members, you have any questions, any comments?
No questions. Just again, thank you. Well, one, thank Big Tom for his willingness to rebuild within the community he's grown up in. But also thank you, Jessica, and thank you, Director Walker, and all the staff who have been figuring out innovative ways to help our community rebuild ourselves. So thank you.
And Tom, I just want to say thank you. I know it's been a tough time with the COVID-19, the closing of the barbershop and everything. We were on another call together when we were discussing a lot of different things. It's just good to see someone that grew up in the Hill, stayed in the Hill, got respect in the Hill, and understands the HILL. Hey, man, congratulations, man.
Thank you, Ed. I really appreciate it. I mean, I appreciate all the help from all you guys at the URA also, and a lot of people in the neighborhood who've been supporting, and we just want to continue to be in the neighborhood and to do great work and to uplift our community. Thank you again.
Sounds good, brother. Diamante, anything you want to say?
Yeah, what I was hoping to say is that, you know, if you're from the Hill District neighborhood like myself, Tom and Councilman Lavelle, then you know that Ham's was a giant in the neighborhood, and that Ham's Barbershop was an institution. And so to see that building lie dormant for the last 11 years has been very heartbreaking for a lot of folks. But today we feel hopeful because Tom is now the giant in the community for the up and coming generation. And so I'm very thankful to the board for considering this investment today. This is what community and economic development work looks like. And again, I believe that this could become a model. And Tom, I want to thank you for being a profile, encouraged to step out there and take on a lot of risk to try to make your dream come true. So thank you on behalf of the URA and the neighborhood. We truly, truly appreciate and value you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. You're going to make me cry. Thank you, though.
Diamante,
appreciate it, Diamante. Yes, I definitely appreciate everything, Diamante. You're strong, and you've been holding it down for the community. Thank you so much.
It's an honor.
Yes, it is. So let's move it to a vote.
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next one, we talk about development services, Hill District, Center Avenue, exclusive negotiations, extensions, and Crawford Roberts, a center that cares campus, expansion, parking, and green space.
Sure, I'll take this. So this is an authorization to extend exclusive negotiations period by 6 months for 6 Center Avenue developers. These developers are listed on the slide. We approved these developers at the February URA board meeting for a period of 6 months of exclusive negotiations to redevelop 170 largely small parcels along the Center Avenue corridor. We approved these pre-COVID. These are small local scale developers. For some, it's their first experience in development. The plans were reviewed by URA staff, and these proposals are reflective of the 2015 Center Avenue corridor redevelopment and design plan. Our exclusive negotiations were for a period of 6 months, so they'll expire in August. This authorization is to extend them for a period of 6 months, thereby extending them until January 2021. The reason we're extending them is due to the COVID pandemic. Some ordinary pre-development activities, such as getting on-site inspections by architects or cost estimates by engineers, have taken longer than expected. There's also some uncertainty on timeline due to the COVID pandemic. And so due to these unforeseen circumstances, we're requesting authorization to extend the exclusive negotiations period for all 6 developers.
Board members, you have any questions?
Very quickly, correction, that's actually 7 developers. I'm sorry, that's a typo on our part. We are including Communion Place, which is along the Heron Avenue and Wiley corridor in this. We're asking the board to extend that one as well.
I'm sorry, my mistake. 7
That's all right.
developers.
Board members, you have any questions?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up is Crawford Roberts Center That Cares Parking Expansion and Green Space. Who's taking that one? Crawford Roberts Center.
So that should be Constance Mayer, and I believe Constance is here with us.
I am. Let me see if I can start video. There we go. Okay, terrific. I am here on behalf of the Center That Cares. What they are looking to do is expand their campus. So on this picture, you can see that there is the building that they've already built, the Grayson Community Center, and they have a parking lot to the west of it. And we have owned, along with the city, a sort of patchwork of parcels around it. What they are looking to do is to expand the parking lot. They clearly, as a community space, they have a lot of community meetings there. They have special events there, and the parking that is there is not enough for them. So they've approached us to see if they can expand to the west. And then there are a couple of parcels in the blue behind. And actually, if we go to the second slide, we can take a look at what their vision is. So they are looking to make this an actual campus, which I think is a beautiful idea. They also own a building there on Granville, and they are looking to turn that into a healing house and to have some green space next to that as well. I actually have Reverend Grayson with us today. I'd really like to give him the opportunity to speak about what his vision is.
Constance, I think he dropped off.
Okay, that's fine. I really need to thank Reverend Grayson, Shanora Grayson Johnson. They have been very patient. They actually came to us several years ago with this request. And, you know, as we all know, it can be challenging to dispose of land, which is something we are actively working to change. We finally, with the help of neighborhood allies, specifically Zach Thomas, who was mentioned earlier, Stephanie Cherney, and the team here at the URA, we finally have gotten it to a place where, you know, one would think a parking lot would not be so difficult to develop, but we have gotten to a place where we have a design, we have a vision, and that vision is this campus. So we are asking for authorization to accept the proposal and a form of disposition contract for these several parcels.
And Shanora is actually here, so if we could take a moment to allow her to speak up and talk a little bit about the project.
Oh, please.
Reverend Grayson. Shanora, are you there?
Yes. I would appeal to Reverend Grayson. I'm not sure why. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Reverend Grayson.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for this opportunity to share the vision for the Center That Cares have been in inception for 21 now years. We started with about 6 kids who knocked on the door of the church, and God gave me the vision as we cared about the 6 students to now roughly 150 during the school year, and another traditionally COVID, another 150 plus during the summer months as well as the summer camp. We now have 4 sites. We have a site, we have about 30 pre-K kindergartens at Warren Church. We have about 75 first through fifth graders at Wesley Center. We have about 50, 60 middle high school kids at the Grayson Center. And through 21st Century, additional site on the West End, as well as we work with a different other partnerships and relationships with GBI, where we have outreach workers in at least 8 areas of the community doing our part to reduce crime and violence. Back to the center at large. The center, again, is where we house our middle and high school kids. And it has become also a community asset at the average pre-COVID 6 to 7, 8 functions on a busy week per week, serving the community from community meetings to conferences to weddings, bridal showers, anniversaries, various parties, as well as repasses, funerals, and so forth. So it is a busy place that we're able to sometimes do 2+ functions a day, especially on the weekends, from the rooftop to the media room to the large gathering room, which is downstairs. Most people have been there, and pre-COVID Zoom meetings we just continue to host meetings, which really has been a community asset for the entire community. It's beyond our dreams and expectations in terms of what it's become. In that, one of the hindrances has been, adequate parking. And so over the last 3 years, we have worked with the URA and other partners in the process of pulling down on the same side of Enoch lots to expand and a wonderful look to partner into the other part of the community that has always been wonderful homes in the neighborhood area. So we would blend and make sure that the community and the tenants and the residents of that lower community feel very pleased with the continuation of the beautification. We have tried to continue to beautify the Grace Center and the yards and the surrounding. And we also purchased 2 homes on Granville. The corner home 174 Granville is one of our homes, and 613 Granville is a kind of health home that we continue to want to expand. So the lots there on that whole, what we hope to develop with campus atmosphere, where the entire community and those outside the community can take advantage of all the square footage. So pre-acquisition, we owned 5,000 square feet of land from Wiley up to the Grayson Center, as well as the land in front of the official front of the building. So this acquisition will allow us to continue the beautification, continue to expand, continue to meet the parking needs that are very prevalent as we speak each and every time we hold a function at the Grayson Center. The community has been wonderful in the way we've been parking on both sides of the street, sometimes both sides of the street, side streets, but it would be a comfortability and a plus to be able to add another 30, 40 spots on our own land, paved and looking and beautified landscape with proper lighting.
Thank you, Reverend Grayson. We know that this project has been one that you've been working on for quite some time, so I'm happy to see it start to come to fruition. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Representative Gainey.
I think we have one question or comment in the queue.
Okay, this comment is from Felicity Williams. It says, the Hill District's Unified Community Review Process, the Development Review Panel, has approved this project, and we thank the Center That Cares for following our community's process. We look forward to the other projects discussed today and the efforts that the URA is engaged in with the Hill District coming before the community, and especially the DRP. Given the volume of activity in the Hill District, more close communication with the Hill CDC would be very productive. Again, thank you for the Center That Cares, and we urge your support today.
Thank you so much.
Board members, got any questions?
No questions. No questions. Just want to thank Reverend Grayson, Shanora, and all those involved with the Center That Cares for all the work that they do. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to thank the Graysons as well. They've been a pillar in the Hill District, and they've transformed many lives. So just continue to build on that legacy. It's powerful. Congratulations to the Grayson family.
Thank you.
So move.
So move.
I got a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Congratulations to the Graysons. So we on agenda B.
Yes, so typically the board is able to adopt Agenda B wholesale, but we have 2 corrections today that need to be made. So those corrections are, we had asked the board for approval for certificates of completion for 1919 Webster Avenue. That property is still under inspection, so we're going to hold that one for right now. So you will not be voting on that this month. We will bring it back to you hopefully next month once those inspections are final. There is a remaining item for an old approval that needed to be done, and it's just more of an administrative cleanup. And then we made a slight correction to the authorization for an administrative agreement with Invest PGH. That was truncated a little bit to be more, to allow for more flexibility as that organization starts to develop. So other than those 2 items, the board can vote these in entirety.
So with that move, we can just vote, or we don't have to worry about the amendment or anything, Diamante?
I want to make sure that this is done correctly. So Tanisha Powell, if you're on the line, would you walk the board through how to do Agenda B? All right, I don't see Tanisha here. So what I will say, just for clarity of the record, why don't you go through each of them as they appear on the screen? We've written them correctly on the screen for you, so you can use that as your script. And that way we'll make sure that the adjustments are made in the minutes.
Okay, so we got disclosure approval of the Hillary Rodman to receive an FOH down payment and closing cost assistance deferred loan for a property located at 5305 Gertrude Street, Pittsburgh, PA 15207. Ms. Roman is the city planning employee. And should I read the amendment as well?
Yes, just read all of them and then vote the whole thing.
Amendment to Resolution 227, 2015 to increase the URA's parking tax diversion related to borrowing in support of the 350 Oliver parking structure by $180,000. And then certificates of completion. Certificate of completion for Brenda Tate for Block 10J, Lot 170 in the 3rd Ward, Residential Rehabilitation, 1919 Webster Avenue. So moved.
And then the next one, thank you.
I didn't see the next
Last
one. I'm
2,
sorry.
that's all right, last 2.
All right. Authorization to enter into all necessary agreements with Invest PGH Inc. for the provision of administrative services for a fee and grants authorizations to the Department of Community and Economic Development, Development, Blight Remediation Program, and if required, enter into related grant contracts, sub-grants and fee agreements. Broad Street Plaza, East Liberty, $300,000, 4800 block of Hazelwood, $300,000.
Excellent.
Is that it?
Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
All right, board, so move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. That's all I see that we got for today. Is there anything else, Diamante?
No, I think that we are good.
All right. Want to
Great
thank
job.
everybody. Thank you. Want to thank everybody for the participation. Again, we're in the second spike of this COVID-19. Please be careful out there. Wear your mask and have a great day.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.